making a Super Bowl ad. So I think that's one difference that you'll see. But anyway, let me just start. I just want to touch on the theme of the discussion tonight, and then I'll pass the buck to Pramod.
Okay, let me just let me tell a story about outsourcing and India. The time frame is 99-2000. I was an investor at that time in a company in Boston. We had funded, along with Matrix Partners and Northbridge Capital, a couple of entrepreneurs coming out of Bell Labs, and they had set up shop in Boston. We wanted them to come to California, but they insisted going to the East Coast. And they were going to build what was at that time called a wireless soft switch. This was in the telco market. And we funded the company, and it's now 2000. This is before the dot-com crash. We're sitting around the table at a board meeting, and we can't find any wireless engineers in Boston. First of all, they don't exist in Boston, right, by and large. And so we're sort of chatting with our entrepreneur and saying, well, okay, we're going to have a distributed office. So where are we going to go? So, well, we could go to San Diego, or we could go to Dallas. Nortel had a big shop there at that time with wireless. Or we could go to Schaumburg, and Motorola's out there. Well, we tried that, and we couldn't attract anyone. If you recall, back in the 2000 time frame, it was very hard to acquire talent, right? So we're sitting there at the next board meeting saying, what are we going to do? We need to build this product. You've got the spec. You've done your market validation. And our founder sort of had an idea. He says, I think what I'm going to do is figure out where Motorola has centers of excellence. And I'm going to see if I can set up shop right next and poach some engineers. So he found a location in Madrid, Spain, and Bangalore, India. And I still remember the conversation around the table. You're going to, this is now early 2000, you're going to Bangalore, India? Ooh. You're going to find wireless engineers there? You can do design work there? And he says, trust me, I'll make sure I hire the best. Well, he did. And about 6 months later, we're asking him, well, how are things going? And he says, well, the product coming out, and it's actually in trials at a couple of places, and everything's working well. And, everyone's very skeptical around the table, saying, product works? Yeah. Well, where was it designed? Well, it was designed by some engineers in Bangalore. He says, it works? Yeah. So, well, where are the beta sites, right? And he said, well, I have 2 beta sites. Where? Well, it's Tata Indicom in Mumbai, and it's Reliance Infocom in Mumbai. And, everyone sort of looks around the table, the board members, including myself, saying, oh, boy, I think we're in trouble. What are we going to do? We need to fund this company going forward. And he says, well, but, actually, Motorola is very excited about our product. And they actually introduced us to these clients. Motorola's interested? Yeah. Product's working? Yeah. It was designed in Bangalore? Yeah. Well, fast forward, 2001, things are really working. Motorola's a big partner now. To cut the story short, 2003, I think, 2002, 2003, Motorola bought the company. Vinforia Networks was the name of the company. But prior to that, I still remember when Motorola was starting to expand its operations and the selling of this product, the founder came to us at a board meeting and said, I need to hire more engineers because we got to keep up with the beta sites and the demand for beta sites and proof of concept sites. And so I need to hire 50 engineers. And, everyone sort of has a sinking feeling. We look at the cash balance on the balance sheet. Oh, my goodness, 50 engineers? We can't afford it. He said, no, I figured it out. We're going to hire them in Bangalore. 50 engineers. He said, well, let me show you the income statement, what it's going to look like. He showed us the budget, and everyone's staring at the budget and saying, you're hiring 50 people and your burn rate barely goes up? And he says, yeah, because we pay them about 1/4 of what it costs here in Boston. Well, it was the first time everyone's looking around the table. Still remember Paul Ferry, Ed Anderson, and myself saying, you're getting this work done in India. It works. This is design work. You're building wireless networks, and you're paying these engineers 1/4 of what we pay them here, and if we can find them, right? Well, Then came the crash, as you know, and the whole emphasis on capital efficiency, and a lot of venture capitalists in the Valley and elsewhere began to say, hey, let's figure out if we can get some of our work done overseas because of capital efficiency reasons and so on and so forth. Exit valuations dropped, as you know. So, in 2004, we started to encourage our companies. Today, we have about 22 companies here in the Valley that are headquartered here, obviously selling here global products. But a lot of their work, or some of their work, it's a spectrum, is done back in India, in different places. And we have 5 direct investments now in the country. I go there every 6 weeks, spend about 10 days there. We've sort of looked at the marketplace in India and said to ourselves, there are 3 sectors we're going to invest in. There's obviously the consumer internet, consumer media sector, and we're active investors in that. Some of these are startups, some of these are mid-stage companies. Then there's what we call the second-generation services companies. These are not IT-enabled services companies necessarily, but these are companies that are doing product development services, or these are companies that are doing knowledge processing, high-end equity research for CSFB and Goldman Sachs and a whole bunch of other bankers, high-end market research for private equity firms as well as corporations. And then the third sector is sort of the product sector. Now, our emphasis today, when we come across a product company or product opportunity, what we try to do today is say, listen, the early adopters of those technologies are still in the US and Europe, unless you're in the wireless domain. So those companies, we try to set those up in what we call the cross-border concept. Headquarter them here close to where the early adopters are. You need to collaborate with them to define your product, but do all your product development or as much as you can offshore. But our belief is that over a period of time, that picture is going to change. And this will set the stage for our discussion later on. Our belief is that as India becomes an early adopter of technology, and I think that's going to happen, and I'll tell you why. It might take 5 years to get there, but 2 things are going to force that to happen. Number one, competition is going to drive that. As you know, India is opening up to the retail sector. Reliance Retail is installing a store a day. Walmart's going into their country as well. Well, Walmart's going to go in there with their latest and greatest data warehousing capabilities and data mining capabilities. And guess what's going to happen? Reliance Retail will have to do the same. They will become early adopters of technology. They already are, right? I think the other thing that's going to drive, as banks open up and the banking sector is opening up, you're going to see ICICI Bank and State Bank of India having to compete with Citicorp and Barclays and whoever else goes in there. They're all going to become early adopters. They're going to be forced to become early adopters of technology. I think the other thing that's going to drive the adoption of technology is what happened in the U.S. 20 years ago. As wages continue to increase, and they are, wages in India are increasing at the rate of 15 to 20% a year. And the only way you're going to have to keep up is to increase productivity. And so enterprises, as they were forced here in this country, to automate so that they can keep up productivity gains, so they match salary increases, is going to force countries like India and China and so on to become early adopters of technology as well. And when that happens, and I think it happens in the next 4 to 5 years, you're going to see product companies germinated right there, and they don't have to come to the U.S. to do their beta sites, because you will see the early adopters right there. And then they go out and build global product companies.
So I think that's a perfect segue into you, Alok, right? I mean, you should talk about what your company does.
So I actually came to the US in 1980, did my PhD from Hopkins in computer science, 1984, joined IBM Research. I was with IBM Research in Yorktown Heights, about 30